Excuse me,
Soğuşu
can I sit here?
arayacağız. Wamani muri
The voice
kau.
was small, barely louder than the rustle of dry leaves skimming across the cracked sidewalk. Ava Monroe, 27, looked up from her spiral notebook, blinking against the pale morning light. A boy stood in front of her, maybe 4 years old. His jacket was zipped to his chin, but it was thin and pilled. His shoes were soaked, the left one missing a lace. In his right hand he clutched a chipped toy car. His cheeks were flushed, but not from the cold. Ava shifted her bag aside. "Of course," she said, her voice gentle. "You can sit." The boy climbed up beside her on the wooden bench. His legs didn't quite reach the edge, and he swung them softly, the car bouncing against his knee. She glanced around. No adult in sight. "Are you here with someone?" The boy didn't answer right away. Then he said, as if rehearsed, "Mama's working. She said to wait here." Ava nodded slowly. Her breath clouded in the air, but there was a heavier chill settling in her chest. She looked down at the boy's face. His eyes were tired, too tired for 4 years old. "What's your name?" "Logan." "Nice to meet you, Logan. I'm Ava." He gave her a small, solemn nod like they'd just signed a contract. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Ava glanced at her watch. The bus to Westlake wouldn't be here for another 10 minutes. She had worked the overnight shift again at the veterinary clinic and was running on cold coffee and no sleep. Then the sound of tires crunching gravel pulled her attention. A black SUV pulled up just past the stop sign. Its tinted windows reflected the empty storefronts and shuttered diner across the street. The engine idled. The front door opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, maybe mid-30s. His coat was expensive wool with clean shoulders, and he moved like someone who made decisions for a living. "Logan," the man called. Not loud, just enough. The boy slid off the bench and trotted toward him. No fear, no surprise. Ava stood up uncertain. The man crouched to hug the boy, then looked up at her. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For sitting with him. He said his mom was working. I didn't want to leave him alone." The man's jaw tensed. His eyes were dark blue, clear but unreadable. "She left him here an hour ago. I've been looking." Ava frowned, confused. "I'm Chase Bennett," he added, offering a hand. The name hit her like a bell. She didn't shake his hand. "You're the guy from the Lakefront project." He nodded once. "That's me." "Logan called you uncle. It's easier that way." Ava didn't know what to say. She just watched as the man led the boy to the car, opened the back door, and buckled him in with the practiced ease of someone used to doing things alone. Before he closed the door, Logan waved. "Bye, Ava." She raised her hand, still stunned. Then they were gone. The snow began just after noon. Flakes danced down like bits of torn paper light, and swirling before thickening into something heavier. Ava had just finished her second shift at the animal clinic. A shepherd mix had needed emergency stitches after getting caught on barbed wire, and her feet were soaked through. She ducked into Bean Row, the only coffee shop in town still open during the storm. It was warm inside, quiet, except for the low hum of a jazz playlist and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. She peeled off her gloves and rubbed her hands together. A young barista handed her a cup without asking. "Triple shot Americano, no room." "You're my hero, Nate," Ava said, taking it with a tired smile. She chose a seat by the window, her usual. It overlooked the sidewalk and the lake beyond, now lost in the curtain of falling snow. She took a sip, pulled out her phone, and started scrolling aimlessly. "Mind if I sit?" The voice was familiar, deeper now, but unmistakable. She looked up. Chase Bennett. Same coat. Less pristine. A little dusted with snow. He looked taller indoors, or maybe just less distant. Ava blinked. You follow women from bus stops often, he smirked. Only the ones who rescue my nephew. She motioned to the seat. Be my guest. He ordered a black coffee, no sugar, no cream, sat across from her like it was perfectly normal. So, she began studying him. Big city CEO hanging out in a tiny town during a snowstorm. What's the story? He looked at her like he was debating what version to offer. Finally, he said, my brother overdosed 2 years ago. His girlfriend Logan's mom spiraled after that. She drops him with me sometimes. Disappears. This time, she didn't come back. Ava stared at him, her fingers tightening around her mug. I'm sorry, she said finally. Don't be. Logan's the best thing that came out of any of it. There was a silence. Not awkward, just heavy. Then Chase asked, You're a vet, right? Vet tech. I handle the blood, the stitches, the dogs that bite when scared. Not glamorous, but it pays most of the bills. Most. Let's just say I'm on a first-name basis with overdue notices. He gave a faint smile. Not pity, understanding. Logan likes you, he said. Ava shrugged. Kids and dogs. I speak both. Another quiet pause. She noticed the faint lines around his eyes, the tired set of his shoulders. You have kids? She asked softly, not knowing why. His eyes dropped. Had one. Little girl, she died. Drowning accident. Her mom, my wife, couldn't take it. She passed a year later. Ava's stomach dropped. I'm sorry, she said again, and this time she meant it with every fiber of her being. Yeah, he replied, his voice rougher now. Me too. She didn't know what made her do it, maybe the snow, the exhaustion, or just the way he looked so completely lost beneath all that composure, but she reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. He didn't flinch, and that was how it began, not with fireworks or flirtation, but with grief recognizing itself in someone else. After that snowy afternoon, they kept running into each other, though neither admitted they were probably both making it easier to be found. At the animal clinic, Chase would stop by with Logan and pretend to ask about a stray cat no one had ever seen. At the cafe, Ava found him already seated by the window more than once, always with a spare muffin. He never pushed, never overstepped. She never invited, but she stopped avoiding. One Friday morning, Logan ran ahead of Chase into Bean Row and nearly tackled Ava's legs. Miss Ava, I brought my car. The wheel's fixed, he announced proudly. Ava knelt beside him. That's awesome, bud. Who fixed it? Chase. He used real glue, not just tape. Ava smiled at Chase, who lingered by the door with coffee in one hand and something wrapped in brown paper in the other. Got you something, he said. She raised an eyebrow. Unless it's a landlord's amnesty letter, you're setting the bar high. He handed over the package. Inside was a small plush dog, the kind given to children in pediatric hospitals. It wore a tiny vest that read, Therapy Pup. For Logan, he said, in case he ever needs a buddy. Logan's eyes lit up. He hugged the toy to his chest instantly and whispered, I'll name him Baxter. Ava looked at Chase. That's kind, she said carefully. He gave a little shrug. Kids should have someone who doesn't leave. For a moment she said nothing. Then quietly, that's not something money usually thinks about. Chase looked at her. Not insulted. Just real. I think about a lot of things now. From that day on, they became something like 3 points in an orbit. Ava was still exhausted, still juggling late shifts and part-time online courses she barely had energy for. Logan became her shadow on weekends, trailing after her like a puppy at the clinic. Chase showed up often, not loudly, not like a man demanding entry, but like someone waiting to be let in. And little by little she did. They began to share real things. She told him how she had once planned to be a wildlife biologist before her sister's addiction shattered everything. About how Logan had become the only reason she hadn't completely unraveled. He told her about his startup days, how he built a tech company for ocean mapping systems because he once loved sailing with his dad. How that passion died with his daughter. How he had lived quietly inside his own head since. He never bragged, never asked for anything, just listened. Sometimes that was enough. But Ava wasn't naive. She knew what it meant to accept help. Help came with strings, expectations, power. Still, on the coldest mornings when Logan's cough lingered and her paycheck wouldn't stretch to the pharmacy run and heating bill, she found herself silently hoping Chase would knock on the door. And almost every time he did, not with cash, not with charity, but with presence. A cup of tea, a book for Logan, a ride to the clinic when her tires gave out. He made it look effortless, which scared her more than anything. Because when something feels too easy, it's usually on the edge of falling apart. The night it happened, Ava had just finished folding laundry and was halfway through a leftover sandwich when she heard it. A strange sound. From Logan's room. She dropped the plate and rushed in. He was curled on his side cheeks, flaming red sweat beading across his forehead. His breath came fast and shallow. "Logan," she whispered, crouching beside his mattress. "Hey, sweetheart, talk to me." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. She touched his forehead, blazing hot. The thermometer blinked 104.3. Her heart thudded against her ribs. She grabbed her phone. She didn't call 911. She called Chase. He answered before the second ring. "Something's wrong with Logan," she said, trying to keep her voice even. "I'm on my way." 8 minutes later, Chase pulled up in front of her duplex. He barely parked before jumping out and running inside. When he saw Logan wrapped in a blanket, face flushed and eyes dim, something inside him visibly buckled. "Let me drive," he said. "Faster than waiting on an ambulance." She nodded without hesitation. They bundled Logan in her coat, held him between them, and raced through the dark streets slick with rain and slush. At the emergency room, Ava held Logan close, her lips near his ear, as nurses and doctors took over. "Please," she whispered to him, "please stay with me." Chase didn't say anything. He just stood behind her, a quiet mountain of resolve. Hours passed. The waiting room lights never flickered. The chairs were cold. The coffee was worse. Ava sat hunched forward, elbows on knees, hair in her hands. She didn't realize Chase was still beside her until he gently set a blanket over her shoulders. "You didn't have to stay," she murmured. "I did." She looked at him. Really looked. There was no arrogance, no savior complex. Just concern, and something gentler beneath it. "You always this steady during a storm. Only when it's not my first." She didn't ask what that meant. She just leaned against him. And for the first time since the fever began, her shoulders relaxed. At sunrise, a young doctor came out. "He's stable. The fever broke. We're monitoring him, but he's past the critical point." Ava covered her face, exhaling a sound halfway between a sob and a prayer. Chase placed a hand on her back. She didn't move away. The doctor smiled gently. "You can see him soon." One of you should go home and rest. We're not leaving him, Ava said, her voice raw but steady. Then we'll bring you some blankets, the doctor said kindly. When they were alone, Ava turned to Chase. Thank you. He shook his head. You're his anchor. I'm just the one who got the car. But she knew better. That night, she drifted to sleep in the recliner beside Logan's hospital bed, her hand in his tiny fingers. And Chase sat nearby watching them as if they were something holy. Something he didn't want to lose again. Logan came home 3 days later. His fever had passed, but Ava still felt like she was breathing in pieces. She hovered by his side, counted his breaths while he slept, checked his temperature twice an hour. Her body was running on caffeine and reflexes, her mind swinging between relief and dread. But Logan bounced back faster than expected. Kids did that. They absorbed the storm and laughed through the rain. Ava, on the other hand, could still hear thunder. The day she picked up his discharge papers, the nurse smiled and handed her a pale blue folder. You're all set. And just so you know, the balance has been cleared. Ava froze. What? The nurse smiled wider. The whole thing was covered this morning. An anonymous donation. Mr. Bennett, I believe. The name hung in the air like a gust of wind slamming a door. Ava didn't respond. She took the folder, walked to the elevator, down the hall, out into the parking lot. Her legs moving by memory alone. When she got home, Logan was asleep on the couch, clutching his toy dog. Ava stood in the kitchen for a full minute. Then she grabbed her keys. The receptionist at Bennett Marine Tech tried to stop her, but Ava was already past the glass doors. The top floor smelled like expensive wood and restraint. Chase looked up from his desk when she barged in. Ava, you paid it, she said. He stood slowly. I was going to tell you. When after you decided what else I couldn't handle, it wasn't like that. You paid for everything behind my back. You went around me, Chase. I was trying to help. No, you were trying to fix something. Like I'm broken. Like we're just one more problem your money can solve. He stepped closer, but carefully, like approaching a wild animal. Ava, I know how this feels, but this wasn't about power or control. Then what was it? It was about not standing still again. Her arms dropped. What does that even mean? He looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke. My daughter Ella, when she drowned, I wasn't there. I was in a meeting. My wife. She blamed herself. I blamed myself. And when he faltered. I sat in a hospital room just like that one, watching a machine breathe for someone I loved, and I did nothing. His voice broke. I couldn't save them. But this time, Logan, he was still here. You were still here. And for the first time in years, I thought maybe I could do something that mattered. The words hung between them like smoke. Ava blinked back tears, but the ache didn't fade. I didn't ask you to save us, she said quietly. I know, Chase replied. But I wanted to. She turned and left without another word. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay beside Logan on the couch, holding his hand. Somewhere in the dark, she whispered, I don't know how to let someone love us without losing pieces of myself. Logan stirred in his sleep, and Ava didn't know if he heard. But maybe it didn't matter. The hurt had already settled in, and it wasn't going anywhere soon. It started with a text. Ava had just finished scrubbing Logan's sneakers in the sink when her phone buzzed on the counter. It was from one of the moms at the daycare Logan sometimes visited. Did you see this? Followed by a link. Ava tapped it. Her stomach turned. Billionaire widower resurfaces with local vet tech and her sick. Nephew tragedy turned PR makeover. Below the headline was a gallery of stolen moments, Logan asleep on Chase's shoulder in the hospital. Ava smiling at the cafe window. Chase holding open a car door with Logan's stuffed dog tucked under one arm. The captions twisted everything. Ava clicked out of it, but the nausea stayed. Had he known, had it all been staged, was Logan? Was she just a convenient image? She didn't reply to Chase's latest text. She didn't answer the knock at the door that evening. She told Logan he couldn't go to the cafe that weekend. And when Chase called again, she blocked the number. Just like that. She cut him out. He showed up 2 days later. Ava opened the door partway. Her arms were folded. Her eyes were dry, but only barely. "I didn't know about the article," Chase said. "I swear to you, I would never—" "But it happened," Ava cut in. "And now we're public sympathy points. No one from my team leaked it. That doesn't change what it looks like. You know me better than that." "Do I?" she asked. He took a step back, wounded. She didn't flinch. "I never used you, Ava. You didn't have to," she said, her voice shaking now. "All it takes is one picture and a last name like yours." Chase opened his mouth, then closed it. "Please," he said, "don't let this end like this. I don't know what to believe anymore." She began closing the door, and this time he didn't stop her. That night, the halls of Chase's house were silent. He walked past to the untouched living room, the cold kitchen, the stairs that creaked under no weight. He opened the door to the room he hadn't stepped into in nearly a year. Ella's room. It still smelled faintly of vanilla lotion and forgotten lullabies. He sat on the edge of the bed, picked up one of her storybooks, The Little Explorer, and opened to the first page. His voice cracked on the words. "Once upon a time there was a girl who believed in the stars." He closed the book before he could finish. His hands trembled as he pressed it to his chest. He had tried. He had dared to feel again. And now the silence in his house was louder than ever. The snow had melted into slush. Days blurred. Ava moved on autopilot feed. Logan get to work, pick up groceries, avoid places where Chase might be. But she hadn't counted on Logan. One Thursday afternoon, she was in the kitchen unpacking groceries when she noticed it. His jacket was gone. So were his boots. The front door was open just a crack. Her heart stopped. "Logan," she called, rushing through the hallway. No answer. She checked every room. Empty. On the coffee table sat a small piece of notebook paper, written in crooked block letters. "Going to find Chase. He needs me." She called Chase before she even grabbed her keys. He answered on the first ring. "She's gone. Logan's gone. I think he went looking for you." Chase didn't ask questions. "Stay home," he said. "I'll find him." He knew where to go. There was only one place that made sense. And sure enough, there he was, sitting on the same weathered bench where he had first met Ava. Logan's legs swung above the pavement. In his hands was Baxter, the toy dog, tucked close to his chest. The sky was turning orange with sunset. Chase parked fast, heart hammering. He rushed across the sidewalk and knelt in front of the boy. "Logan." The boy looked up and grinned. "I came to find you. Mama said you were gone." Chase pulled him into a hug so tight it made Logan giggle. "You can't run off like that," Chase said, voice shaking. "You scared us." "But you were sad." Chase closed his eyes. He didn't know how to respond to that. A moment later, headlights swung around the corner. Ava's car pulled up. The door flung open before the engine stopped. She ran across the snow-dusted sidewalk, and when she saw Logan safe in Chase's arms, her knees nearly gave out. "I thought I lost him," she cried. Chase stood still, holding the boy. "You didn't," he said gently, "and you don't have to go through this alone anymore." Ava looked at him. Her face was red and wet and overwhelmed, but she didn't step away. Instead, she reached out not to pull Logan back, but to place her hand on Chase's arm. "I never thought I could have a family again," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But if you let me, I want to try." Ava nodded, silent. But the truth was in her eyes. And between them, Logan giggled and squeezed Baxter tighter, too young to understand the gravity of the moment, but wise enough to feel its warmth. 1 year later, the world felt different. Logan no longer needed his wool hat. His hair had grown in soft waves, and his laughter filled the corners of rooms that once echoed with worry. His cough had disappeared. His energy came back in waves that swept through the house and left trails of toys in every room. Ava stood in the kitchen of a home she once thought too big for anyone like her Chase's home, now their home. She stirred pancake batter while Logan set the table, chattering to Baxter, who sat at a place of honor in a small wooden chair. Chase walked in with coffee and a sleepy smile. "You look like someone who finally slept," he said. "I look like someone who finally exhaled," Ava replied, half laughing. They kissed like people who knew what it meant to lose and what it cost to stay. That afternoon, Chase suggested a walk. No fanfare, no destination. Just the three of them, side by side. They passed by familiar streets and bare trees until they turned the corner and stood in front of Bean Row Cafe. Ava laughed softly. "I haven't been here since Logan tried to negotiate a seat with a stranger." "Exactly." They went inside. The bell over the door jingled. Same wooden floor. Same crooked sign above the pastry case. Same table by the window, empty, waiting. They sat down like before. Logan in the middle, bouncing his heels against the leg of the table. Ava shook her head, smiling. "You planned this, didn't you?" Chase just sipped his coffee. Logan looked around, then gasped. "This is it." Ava blinked. "What is—" "This is where I said it. Can I sit here?" She looked at him, then at Chase. Her eyes welled. "I didn't know it would change everything," she whispered. "I did," Chase said quietly. He stood, reached into his coat pocket, and walked around to her side of the table. She frowned. "What are you—" He dropped to one knee. Her heart stopped. From his pocket he pulled a small box. Inside was a simple silver ring, no diamonds, no sparkle, just clean, quiet promise. "The first time I met you," he said, "your nephew asked for a seat, and that small moment opened a part of me I thought was closed forever. I lost a family," he continued, "and I never thought I'd be allowed to build another one. But you, Ava, you brought me back. You and Logan showed me how to hope again." He looked over at the boy, then back at her. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know what I want. I want to sit beside you, wherever life takes us. Will you marry me?" Ava didn't speak. Her eyes overflowed. Her hands trembled. She nodded, and that was enough. Logan clapped and squealed. "You're gonna be my real daddy now." The barista smiled from behind the counter. A couple by the door applauded quietly, and the sunlight poured in through the window, bathing the three of them in gold. Outside, the world moved on, unaware that at a small cafe table a question had been answered. Not just the one spoken aloud, but the one that had lingered between them for months. Can I sit here? Yes. Forever.